Okay, for problem number 13, it says use the rule for finding a derivative of a composition. And here is the rule, okay, to find the h prime. And I tell you above that h prime is just fog. Okay, so for 13, I want to find h prime of x. So the first thing I'm going to do is take the derivative of the f function. And that's going to be 28x cubed plus 9x squared. I'm going to put this in parentheses, and I'm also going to put a box around the x's because I have to replace those x's with my g prime of x as is indicated in my formula. Okay, so let's continue. What else is indicated in my formula? This whole thing should be multiplied by g prime of x. Well, g prime of x is just the number 2. Alright, so now we have to rewrite it so that we get do the replacement with the g of x for the x's that I have boxed. Okay, so 28 is now being multiplied by 2x minus 3 to the third power, plus 9 is being multiplied by 2x minus 3 to the second power, and then the whole thing is going to be multiplied by 2. Okay, so I have h prime of x, but I kind of think I should clean this up a little bit more. So let's see if we can get this in a simpler form. So how about if we distribute that 2? So that's going to give me 2 times 28 is 56, and then this is still 2x minus 3 cubed plus 18 times my 2x minus 3 squared. Alright, so I think we should do some more with this, because ideally it's nice to have it in factored form. So why don't I figure out greatest common factor factoring? What do they have in common? So in 8, I think 9 is going to go into both of those, isn't it? So I believe it will. So because 9 times 5, 9 times 6, nope, it's not. So I think the biggest I can get is 2. So I'm going to grab a 2 out. And in terms of the powers, I can take out a 2x minus 3 squared. I put my box, because I like to use the box when I do greatest common factor factoring. And I'm going to have a 28 here times 2x minus 3, because I need one more, plus 9. Alright, so we're going to do what I normally do. When I get over here in this box, I'm going to distribute the 28 so I can add in the 9. So 2x times 28 is 56x minus, okay, 3 times 28, 3 times 8 24, then the 4 carry the 2, 3 2s are 6, that's 84, and then I have plus my 9. Okay, so it looks to me like we can combine these two, and that's going to end up being a negative 75, right? Yes. Okay, so let me change my color again. My final answer is going to be h of x equals 2 times 2x minus 3, and then that's squared, times 56x minus 75, and there's nothing that can be reduced further. So that's a nice answer. So that's your best form. So let's go ahead, we'll do number 14 on the next page. Okay, looking at number 14, we're going to do a derivation of a composition again. And so the first thing I'm going to do is find my f prime of x. So f prime of x is going to equal 6x squared minus 20x. Now right away I'm going to put a box around those x's because I know I have to replace them with the g of x function. Okay, so all this is in parentheses because this whole thing is being multiplied by the derivative of g of x. Well, I should say that g of x is x to the 1/2, so that I know when I take the derivative, I'm going to get 1/2 x to the negative 1/2. Alright, so now let's plug in what we had. So my f prime of x equals 6 times g squared. Well, if g of x was radical x, if you square that, you get x. So this just becomes 6 times x minus 20. I'm just going to replace it. So 20 radical x, all times 1/2 x to the negative 1/2. So remember, I've always said that those negative exponents are awesome for taking derivatives but terrible for evaluating them. So we're going to go one more step and we're going to clean this up so I can see what I have. So I have 6x minus 20 radical x. That's all good. And then this is times 1 over 2 radical x. Okay, so I like to clean this up. So why don't we distribute the 1 over 2 radical x to both of the terms inside the parentheses. So f prime of x equals, so now I'm going to have 6x over 2 radical x, and we'll deal with that in a second, minus 20 radical x over 2 radical x. Okay, so let's start canceling some things. These are going to cancel. 2 is going to go into 20 10 times. Okay, 2 goes into 6 3 times. Look what's going to happen here. The denominator is gone, and this is going to be radical up here. So that's my final form. Let's just write this over so we can see what we actually have now. So f prime of x is going to equal 3 times radical x minus 10, and that is the end of that problem. Okay, let's go on, and we're going to do 15 and 16 on the next couple of pages. Okay, in this problem, we're asked to find the derivative of an unknown function. So the unknown function is the u equals. We don't know what that is. U as a function of time is what we don't know what it is. Let me just clarify that. Okay, so we don't know, we don't have a function for u of t. If we did, we would just take the first derivative and we'd be done. Because we don't have that, we're going to work through this problem. And we're going to work through it using the chain rule. So if we want to find du dt, okay, so if we want to find derivative of u with respect to t, that's going to equal du dx times dx dt. And I'm going to remind you that at the end of the problem, you can only have t as a variable because you're looking for du dt. So let's begin. Du dx is 6x plus 7. Put that in parentheses. Dx dt is simply 5. So this x right here I can't have in my final answer because I'm looking for du dt. So wherever I have an x, I'm going to replace it with the expression I have for x that's in terms of t. So 6 times 5t minus 6 plus 7, okay, all of this is being multiplied by 5. So let's see what we have. So I have 30t minus 36 plus 7 all times 5. So right in here, what can you change that to? So hopefully you said you can change that to negative 29. So inside my parens, and I'll change back to my green, I now have $30t minus 29 times 5. So you might as well go ahead and distribute that. So this is going to equal 5 times 30 is 150t minus, and 5 times 29 should be 145. Okay, and we are done. So that's our derivative. That is du dt. Okay, so I should have fix this a little bit. This should have been a dt. Okay, so that's it. So the key thing is, remember, when you're all done with your problem, you can only have the variable for t in your answer. So if you have to make a substitution, at the last step, go ahead and make that substitution. Okay, let's go ahead and we'll do number 16 on the next page. Okay, so we're doing the same thing, only with a little bit more complicated problem. We're still in search of du dt. Let's take your first derivative, and I am getting 18x squared minus 20x. Oh, the derivative of minus pi squared is 0 because that's just a number. Okay, so all that is being multiplied by 18t plus 4. Alright, now we have to do some switching out because we have x's in here and I can't have x's. So wherever I have an x, I'm going to replace it with the expression or the equation right here, 9t squared plus 4t. So let's start switching out. Du dt equals 18 times 9t squared plus 4t all squared minus 20 times 9t squared plus 4t, and all of this I'm going to put in a bracket because the whole quantity that's in that bracket is being multiplied by 18t plus 4. So let's see what we can do. It looks to me like we can do some greatest common factor factoring inside my bracket. So I believe that the biggest number that goes into both 18 and 20 is 2. So let's see what I'm going to get. I pull out the 2, and I can also pull out a 9t squared plus 4t. Okay, to get back the first piece, which is this, I need a 9, and then I also need a 9, well, then I also need to do this, right? I also need one of these, but just one. Okay, so then minus, I guess I'll close this up. No, excuse me, I'm not going to do that. What am I saying? Bring down my minus. 2 times what gives me 20, and that answer should be 10, and I don't need anything else there. So now I can close that bracket, and I'm going to close it again, and all of that is multiplied by 18t plus 4. Okay, so let's think about this. Do we need to do anything else to this? What I probably would do is just work on this piece in here because I don't want to have a minus 10 kind of hanging there. So changing to red, I'm going to say that this is 81t squared plus 36t minus 10. Alright, so let's see what we can do. And then the whole thing is multiplied by 18, so I should have this absolutely in parens. Alright, changing back. When we finish this whole problem, du dt, oh look, I think I'm going to take a 2 out of here and combine that 2 with this 2. So I'm going to get 4, and then I have 9 t squared plus 4t times 81 t squared plus 36t minus 10 times, I took a 2 out, so 9t plus 2. And let me just move this up a little bit. Okay, so that was there. I factored a 2 out of there. Alright, so that is your final answer. It's all factors, so that is excellent. So that ends these problems.